this doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, it is a little bracing. I mean, when I discovered, I was sympathetic to you already, but a man's accused of human trafficking. It's worth finding out what he's accused of.
Sure.
And when I discovered that there was no actual human trafficking charge,
yeah,
that's not actually human trafficking. I don't care what you call it.
Yep.
You weren't buying it, even accused of buying and selling anyone. Then the next conclusion you inevitably reach is they don't like the guy. They don't like his views. It's fine. They're going to send him to jail for that.
Yep.
That does seem like an escalation.
Absolutely. But if they don't like your views and you're inspiring millions of people to resist slave programming, you become a threat. Like, they discuss me.
But you can't send a guy to jail because you disagree with him.
You shouldn't. But even before I went to jail, the members of parliament in the UK were talking about me and what a dangerous role model I am for young boys. So they launched this initiative inside of British schools to ban me. My name can't be said inside of any British school. And members of parliament were standing up in parliament saying, Andrew Tate is dangerous. He's encouraging young boys to have misogynistic views, because I'm literally telling young men to go to the gym and to stand up for themselves and believe in themselves and believe in something. And by extension, you look at some of the sexual education books these children are being given, which I believe at age 9, I don't think a child needs to learn about anal sex or any of these things.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. So they're pushing that to the children, but I'm banned.
Well, they're also pushing weed and video games on boys.
Oh, completely. And you can listen to rap music about killing people all day long. And there's a whole, and Lil Nas, he can have sex with the devil in his music videos. That's fine. But I'm dangerous for saying go to the gym. And once I realized what was scary to me is, I said this to my brother. I said, once the parliament's discussing you, you're basically considered a national security threat at this point. You're a threat to national security at that level. And then all bets are off. Right?
What about the UK? So the UK has become more authoritarian than anywhere in the Persian Gulf.
Correct.
How did that happen?
Yeah, and it's, like I said, it's very interesting because people still, the people in Camp B who don't think, a lot of them believe that the law is fair. I've had people say to me, oh yeah, what they're doing to you is garbage. You need a lawyer. So yeah, I do need a lawyer, and I do have a lawyer. Thank you. But it's not that simple, unfortunately. The law is very subjective, and if they want to attack you with it, they're going to do a very good job of attacking you with it. And that's what the UK does. The UK have these laws which are extremely subjective, and they can use it as a weapon to basically silence anyone they decide.
But
or
why?
hurt anyone they decide.
England is the birthplace of free speech, of habeas corpus, of kind of framework of liberal democracy that we thought we believed in.
Yep.
And now it's a country where people are arrested for praying.
Well,
what happened?
Good question. And there's a saying that I heard, and I don't know who said it, but he said that a sick country adopts laws like a dying man will try medicine. And I think that the UK is failing in real time. If you look at it in any metric, whether it's living standards, whether it's crime rate, any metric you can measure the success of a country by, it's fallen off the cliff. It's becoming more and more expensive to live there. The education system's gone down the pan. London is the stabbing capital of the world. You're not safe to leave your house. So their answer to this is just more and more and more laws. And unfortunately, as they do that, they're not even intelligent enough to actually attack the people who are doing genuinely bad to the world. They just make more and more authoritarian laws, and they end up using them to attack the people that the government doesn't like. And I ended up being one of them. And I think Europe in general has problems. If you look at France as we speak, I think it's on fire, isn't it? Most of it?
It is.
Yeah. So they have issues, and their answer, what's a government's solution to anything? Law. What can a government do? No matter what.
But they're not laws that are aimed at fixing the problem that's right in front of them.
No, they're laws aimed at fixing the person who's talking about the problems. So why don't you get rid of the guy who tells everybody? Isn't that easier? Tucker? Why fix any of this? If we just shut him up, they won't know.
No, but that's like responding to a heat wave by breaking your thermometer.
Completely right. That's the plan.
It's insane.
Plan 1 is to break the thermometer. We might deal with the heat wave a bit later. But
get air conditioning. No, let's break the thermometer.
For now, there's too many people talking about the heat wave. So let's just break that. And then later on, maybe when we have time, we'll do something about the actual issue.
It does seem like a lot of this is an effort not to talk about the real thing in Europe anyway, which is migration.
Yeah.
And the UK, formerly known as England, and France have both been completely changed by people from other countries.
Yep.
And who I'm sure have added good things too. I mean, I'm not, you know, but they've changed them. And in general, they're not better countries. And like, why can't anyone admit that?
But this is what's really interesting to me about what's happening, because we're talking about masculinity and men who say no and men who stand up. But there has to be balance, right? Yeah. Everywhere in the world, there has to be power balances. If there's not a balance in power, there's going to be a vacuum, and that's going to be filled. If you neuter the native population of men, if you destroy their mentality to resist, if you tell them that every single thing about them masculine is wrong, and you basically feminize and eunuchate them, turn them into eunuchs, and then you import high testosterone men from the third world who don't believe any of this garbage, who grew up in a society where they understand the only way to succeed is to be a fearsome predator to a degree. What do you think is going to happen? Like, who's supposed to protect the sanctity of these nations and these settlements and these towns and villages? The police? No. In general, I would argue that it's the masculine essence that can be detected by the people who arrive. I guarantee if you were to put a bunch of these migrants in Sarajevo or Moscow, they behave themselves.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I have a feeling they just look around and go, not today. But when you neuter the native populace, then it's like, well, there's a power vacuum. And when there's a power vacuum, what do we expect to happen? So that's
what are the French going to do about it? What's your average Englishman going to do about
it? Nothing. And that's the thing. And that makes you wonder, is this purposeful? Like, why? These two actions of neutering the native populace and importing these high testosterone third worlders are so at odds with each other. Is this purposeful? I'm not sure, but has anyone considered this? So yeah, it's interesting because you talk about
these are huge and intentional trends, and I mean they're historically transformative trends. They're a big deal, and so they're probably not happening by accident, right? There's got to be some intent. How could there not be?
That's right. And how do they expect all of this to end? And this is exactly what's happening with migration. The problem with migration specifically is that there's no native masculine populace to enforce any degree of culture or boundary or parameter. And like I said, I would argue the point. And I've been to Sarajevo and I've been to Moscow. I've been to these places and I've seen there's a whole bunch of migration and everybody seems to just behave a little bit differently. And I think that's because people understand
that men live here.
That men live here. Yeah. If you turn up in someone's house and their house is pristine, you're probably going to take your cup and you're going to go put it in the kitchen. But if you turn up in somebody's house and it's a fucking mess, and nobody respects the house and nobody cares, and the man is drugged out of his mind, half asleep on the couch, what are you going to do with your cup? You're going to leave it there. You don't give a shit. If you turn up to the Western world and look at it,
then you're going to hit on his wife.
Absolutely. So what do we expect to happen in these scenarios, right? And it is purposeful and it is scary that even me just telling men to go to the gym is seen as an act of defiance to the point where I have to be punished. I must go to jail. I must be silenced. The thermometer must be broken.
If at the end of all of this, no matter what happens, do you plan to stay in Romania?
I love Romania. I love this country. And if I am found not guilty, I will stay in Romania, yeah. I will still stay here. I don't believe in running away. I also believe, and perhaps this is...
Yeah, I didn't even want to ask you that because you've got a legal case pending, but I mean, presumably you're rich enough to run away when you haven't.
Correct. I'm not going anywhere. I think if I was anywhere in the Western world, this would have happened to me. I don't think this is Romania's fault. Let's put it that way. I don't think this is Romania's fault. I think if I resided in Switzerland or France or Italy, the same thing would have happened. From knowing what I know. I think it was going to happen to me regardless, and I think I do have a large amount of sympathy, especially amongst the Romanian population. I get thousands of messages a day from Romanians apologizing to me. Yeah. I think the people here actually like me.
My waiter at lunch yesterday is one of them. He wanted you to know, yeah.
Oh, amazing. This is what I mean. Everyone understands what's happening. My problem is not with Romania. I don't hold any personal grudges against Romania. I think that this Matrix attack was going to come to me. Basically.
What is the Matrix?
Good question. I guess some Americans call it the deep state, but I like to look at it in a more global way. When I say the Matrix, I think there are certain agendas which are being pushed. I think the media machine and the judicial systems of the world work together hand in hand. I think the goal is to control people's minds to a point where they don't discuss anything that's important. The reason I use the Matrix is because I've watched that movie a few times and it has so many similarities to the... Have you seen the movie?
No.
You've never seen the movie The Matrix?
No, I don't watch any movie. I don't want to talk about it on camera. No, I'm very dyslexic and it's hard for me to watch video.
Got it.
Honestly.
Understood. But there's so many similarities, and the basic premise is that humans' minds are controlled and put inside of a false reality so that their body heat can be manifested for the machines. And I don't think it's much different to reality. Our minds are controlled. We're put in a false version of reality. We're told things that aren't true. We're arguing over things that don't matter. We're observing a false version of events. And the goal of it is just to distract us long enough for our bodies to be used for the machines, the soulless. And I think it's pretty similar, striking similarities. And even then, there's a bunch of other similarities which are difficult for me to explain. You haven't watched the movie, but there are agents inside of the Matrix, and the idea of the agent, the purpose of the agent is to make sure that nobody understands how the Matrix really works and to wake anybody's mind up. They want to keep you asleep. And any person can become an agent at any time. If they're not unplugged, if their mind is not free, they can become an agent, and their job is to keep you asleep. And you see agents all the time. COVID awoken me to agents. When I would sit and talk to somebody and they seemed perfectly rational and normal until I mentioned COVID, and then they'd fully change. No, it's dangerous. No, what do you mean? What do you mean? Are you crazy? My grandma got sick. And they became an agent instantly and started repeating the news to me. And I was like, your grandma got sick. How old is she? 97? Interesting. Oh, I better lock myself in my house then. Dumbass. So agents exist and the Matrix exists, and I think most people's version of the world is a false one. The idea and the world that most people have in their mind and how society functions and how all these things function, I genuinely believe is completely false. I think they've all been lied to. I don't think anybody understands how any of the world works. And I try and use some very simple, very simple analogies to wake people up. I said to one of my friends once, I said, if me and you could play video games for $10,000 and you could cheat, would you cheat? He goes, well, no. I was like, if I was whooping your ass and it was 10 grand a game and you could cheat, would you cheat? He goes, yeah. I was like, all right, so you accept that people cheat to win in a video game for a menial amount of money. You think they're not going to cheat for something that matters?
Yeah. I think
they're not going to cheat for something important? You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
how about to get the most important job in the world, President of the United States?
I would never kill myself.
I mean, people kill each other over insurance fraud. You don't think, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So when you actually understand how the world really works, what was really interesting? I remember there was this big military coup in, was it Myanmar or Burma? One of these, there was a big military coup like a year ago or something. And nobody really cared. They mentioned it on the news a little bit. And I looked at it and I looked into it. And they were talking about how the two political parties were almost 50-50. And then in the 90s, something changed. And now one political party just smokes the other one. And the military took over to restore democracy and all this stuff. It was very interesting, the voting machines they used. Really interesting, something to look into.
A lot of countries like that. Philippines, also true. Why do you think support for the war in Ukraine, support for Ukraine's side in the war against Russia, support for a war against Russia in the West, is kind of the bottom line issue for the people who run the US government and for the American media? Why? I mean, I guess you could argue about it, but there isn't an argument about it in the United States. There's a position, and anyone who doesn't hold it is attacked and punished. Why? Why is that so important?
Well, the first thing I think we should all do is I think we should all give Putin credit for curing COVID, right? Because when his invasion happened, COVID went away.
So I hadn't thought about that.
Think about it. It's almost to the day. So we have to give him some credit at least for doing that. He may be the bad guy of the world, but at least he cured COVID for everybody, nearly instantly.
Fair.
Thank you, President Putin. Yeah, I, up until this point, never really commented too heavily on politics.
Yes.
But I understand very well, I like to believe what's happening with Ukraine and Russia. And what I will say to the people who are watching this at home is that if you are naive enough to believe that there are good guys and bad guys in wars, and it's as simple as good and bad, and that the bad guys are crazy and the good guys want freedom, then you need to do a little bit more investigation into what's really happening. And when you look at the vested interest of any country or any person...
Can I just ask you to pause and just comment? That's the truest thing, what you just said. That is and anyone who doesn't understand that should shut the fuck up. And I mean it. Having seen war, anyone who's telling you that it's Churchill versus Hitler is an idiot.
Well, I'll give you an example. When my father was still alive,
excuse me.
Yeah, no, it's true. When my father was still alive, my father died 6 or 7 years ago. I was a lot younger. The war in Afghanistan was going on.
He died 6 or 7 years ago. How old was he?
56.
Oh gosh. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he died. But the war in Afghanistan was going on. And I remember asking my dad, saying, why do the Taliban even fight and resist the American war machine? They don't stand a chance. Like, why are these terrorists even fighting against the American war machine? And my dad said, they're fighting for their way of life. They want their wife, and they want their children, and they want their society and their language, and they don't want pride flags, and they don't want American bullshit, and they don't want to be told what to do. And they're fighting to be a culture and be a people which is independent in and of itself. Like, they're not the bad guys you think they are. They're people who are like, why are you here? What do you want? We don't agree with that. That's against our holy book. Fuck off. Right? So even there's no such thing as good and bad in any war. And people.
Who was your father?
My father was a chess master. He worked for the CIA when he was a linguist for the CIA, and then he was
American.
He was discharged, and for a story I won't tell, but he was a chess master, and it's very interesting. I encourage people to look at his Twitter. He still has Twitter, @Tate Terrific. And everything he was talking about 11 years ago is so important now. 11 years ago, no one cared about, we had the Donbass in 2014. People cared,
Yes.
people cared a bit. But he was literally, he predicted the future. You want to see how chess players can see the future? Read his Twitter. Everything from LGBTQ, why they need your kids because they can't have their own, to the war that's coming and how Europe's going to have an energy crisis, to the letter. It's all on his Twitter. It's amazing to read. It's like you could tell the future. 10 years ago, no one talked about any of this stuff.
Did he live in the U.S.?
Yes. Yeah, he lived in America.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's crazy. But he was telling me about a lot of this stuff even when I was a lot younger. And as we said, there's no good guys and bad guys. But when you have a vested interest in something, I think that people are relatively simple. You're talking about why the American government has such a vested interest in this war.
Which is not good for America.
Which is not good for America. So is it, well, we can say it's for money or we can say it's for power. What else would it be for? What, is it really for freedom and democracy? Well, I think that's already been destroyed by Zelensky, hasn't it? So
Yes.
What is it for if it's not for money and power? And then you say, well, who's the money and the power going to? These are logical conversations. This is a very logical thought process.
I agree.
You know, wouldn't it be interesting to say, okay, I woke up, I'm an American. I would never kill myself. I woke up, I'm an American. Why does America care? Well, I guess it's for money or power. There's no other reason. Okay, well, America wants to be a rich, powerful country. That's fine. Is the money and power going to America, or is it going to a select few individuals? Are those select individuals interested in me and my life? Do they care about benefiting me? Do I need to support the power grab of these select few individuals? Is that going to be a smart move for me to make, for me to have the best possible human experience? Like, this is a very logical thought process.
Yes.
People don't seem to think anymore. They believe that there's a good guy and there's a bad guy, and one team's completely good and one team's completely bad. One team's crazy. They often use the word crazy because to be completely bad, you have to be crazy, right? So you're crazy. He's crazy just for no reason. Reasonless. It's insanity. I don't know if you saw Lukashenko with the BBC. Did you ever see that interview?
No.
Oh, brother. Please watch it. The way he destroys the BBC. I thought I did the best job, but I take second place. Amazing, amazing. But yeah, and you just have to be critically thinking. And then after you're critically thinking, you have to be brave enough. And this is the real pandemic of the world, is cowardice. You have to be brave enough to look around you and realize, everything was a trick. Everything was a lie.
But why not be a coward? I mean, it's just a lot easier, right?
Well, it used to be. This is the thing that's interesting. I would actually argue in the 1950s and 60s, if you were to agree with every single narrative and obey every single law and do exactly what you were supposed to do and pay your taxes, etc., you'd at least get a wife who respected you. You'd at least have children who could go to school without being indoctrinated to a degree. Yeah. You could have a nice house. You could have a pickup truck. You could have a pretty good life if you just followed the rules.
Yes.
I don't think that's true anymore. I think that if you are a man especially, and this is what I talk about masculine issues. If you're a man who was born and you decide to do exactly as you're told, you're going to end up depressed, in debt, working a job that you hate, with a wife who doesn't respect you, with kids who don't listen to you, in a house you don't own, until she leaves you, and then you contemplate suicide a while, and maybe you might find some purpose towards the end, enough to survive and pay your taxes, and then you're gone. I don't think a man who just follows the programming is going to find any happiness. But they don't care. Why would they? They have no interest in masculine happiness. This is another thing that's very interesting. They talk about men's mental health all the time, especially in the UK. I'm not sure about America, but in the UK, they have this big drive for men's mental health. saying that men commit more suicides. Men
A
end
lot
up
more.
A lot more. Because it's hard to be a man. We commit more suicides, we're more depressed, we have all these mental health problems. I come along, I genuinely get thousands of emails a day saying I'm helping men's mental health, but no. You can't help it the way Andrew wants. You can't tell them to go to the gym and stand up for themselves and have pride. What kind of man is going to have a solid mentality and not have mental health issues if he has no pride? That's part of being a man. Part of being a man is proud of yourself. If you wake up and you're not proud of who you are and how you look and the things you say, how are you ever going to have a solid mentality? So when I teach things that genuinely help men's mental health, that's outlawed. No, you're not allowed to do that. Instead, you have to take our version, which is to pretend to care about men's mental health, but not give a shit. Give them a life they know they're not going to enjoy, pay taxes, and die. And men are the backbone.
And medicate them.
And medicate them. Medicate them long enough to keep working. The same way as we medicate farm animals. Just a bunch of injections. Yeah, just keep them alive long enough to get the milk. Milk's gone. Chop the head off. Boom.
They need to put you in prison.
They're trying.
Yeah. I can see why.
They're trying. And it's scary. A lot of people, but then what do? Do I just shut up?
No.
You don't think so?
No, you can't shut up. I mean, because in the end, your self-respect, your dignity is the only thing.
That's right. And this is what people don't understand. People say, Andrew, why are you fighting this war? And they don't understand that war is certain. You either fight war against injustice and you fight war against the things you know that are wrong and you feel good inside of yourself, or you accept the slave programming and fight a war with your own mind. You have to fight something. Yes. I can shut up and believe what I'm told in the news, but then why am I so unhappy all the time? Why am I depressed? Why does my life suck? Why does my woman ignore me? Why do my children not respect me? You're fighting a war, then you're fighting a war with your own mind. I'd rather have all of me on side and fight against what I know is genuinely evil. You can't escape the battle. The battle is here for all of us. So I've made my decision, and that's why I can't be quiet, because you just said I would lose my self-respect and I'd lose my dignity, and I don't think I can function that way as a man. And I don't think any man should be able to function without self-respect and dignity. The reason men died on the Titanic was for self-respect and dignity. They went into the icy cold water and died because they would feel honorless if they jumped on the boat and left the women to die.
That's right.
So when you have self-respect and dignity, you have a hard parameter and you'll do things which are deemed crazy or insane because you believe in them and you stick up for yourself. And that's why they don't want men to have self-respect and dignity.
Rather be a free man in your grave.
Absolutely. So I can't be quiet, and I'm going to say what I believe is true. And I genuinely believe I'm helping the world. I think that any young man who is a follower of mine, I will argue there's no influencer on the planet besides me who is genuinely benefiting their life. I know you're not big on the internet. I look at these other streamers and these other influencers. They play video games all day. They smoke weed on stream. They talk garbage. It's a bunch of drama back and forth like girls. I'm the only influencer or streamer who's genuinely talking about making money, because you need to have money to escape the matrix. It's very hard to resist enslavement when you have to pay the bills. Getting physically strong, because a strong body is a strong mind. Standing up for yourself. Self-motivation. All these things. I'm talking about genuinely positive things. Very few people are. And I think that is an extremely important message that needs to be told. And I'm not going to stop doing it because I know I'm genuinely helping the world. And they're going to try and punish me for it for the rest of my life. I think this is just beginning. And I think when I beat this case, which I believe I will beat, I think something else is going to come. And it's kind of scary because I am a little bit afraid and a little bit intimidated by the incompetence of my enemy, because their standardized playbook is now failing in real time. The standardized playbook is the media attack, the lie, and it's not working anymore. And it got me a little bit worried about what the next move is. You used to just be able to lie about a guy all over the news and you win, right? But now it's like, shut up. So now what? I don't know. And that's what's kind of scary in my scenario, because nobody's going to believe any of the crap they print about me. Nobody believes it. Nobody believes it. Whenever I do an interview with the Matrix media, nobody believes. They have to turn the comments off because everyone in the comments are just ripping them apart.
Well, you do seem very sad on the verge of killing yourself, are you?
Absolutely not. Really not. I never would. And that's what
you said that. I know.
I have to keep saying it. I have to keep saying it because it's scary, right? But I believe you get 3 lives. I think they cancel you initially. And then when that fails, they try and put you in jail without a reason. And if that fails, there's only one option left after that.
That's right.
So I'm in a very scary scenario. But I guess the same as the men on the Titanic just couldn't get on the lifeboat. I just can't stop saying what I believe to be true. If a young man comes to me and says he's depressed, I'm going to tell him how to become a kind of man who's proud of himself. And if that makes him the kind of person that resists slave programming, I'm always going to be public enemy number 1.
you've said depression isn't real, or it's not, as the way we describe depression isn't accurate. What do you think of depression?
When I say depression isn't real, that really upset the world, especially the liberals, because they all live on medication, right? When I say depression isn't real, I'm saying that because I don't believe in things that can take away power from me. If I believed in depression, I would have been depressed in jail. But I can't be depressed if I don't believe in it. If you don't believe in ghosts, how can you be haunted? You have two people in a haunted house. One believes in ghosts, one doesn't. There's a knock in the night. One wakes up, calls an exorcist, is terrified, looks for a ghost. The other guy doesn't believe in ghosts. Knock in the night, goes back to sleep. It's the belief in the ghost that gives it the power. If I don't believe in depression, I believe in feeling depressed. Sure, we're humans, we have emotions. Sometimes we feel depressed, sometimes we feel happy. I don't believe in the idea of becoming a depressed person who has depression. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's possible for me. So if I don't believe in it, how can it happen? I don't believe in depression. So why would I not adopt the mindset that makes me the most capable predator I can possibly be? Why not adopt the mindset that makes me as competent and as fearsome as possible? If you have to install software in your own mind, why would I not install software that makes me capable of not only driving a Bugatti and flying on private jets, but sitting in a Romanian dungeon covered in cockroaches? I need to be able to do all of it. So why would I believe in something that made me incapable? I don't believe in depression because I think that even the belief in and of itself, when you feel depressed, you'll start to consider, maybe I have depression. Then you go see a psychiatrist who tells you you have depression. Then they want you on pills. It's the belief that goes down the spiral. If I feel sad, I go, I'm depressed today, I'll be fine tomorrow.
So why, I suspect you're right, or what you're saying is pointing toward truth. That's my personal view. But even if I disagreed with you, I disagree with you. Why is that so offensive, what you just said?
Well, that's what's interesting, because when I said depression wasn't real, the number of people who would attack me defending depression, this is what I didn't understand.
Right.
You say depression isn't real, but depression's ruined my life, and it's super real, and it ruined my life, and I lost my marriage. I'm like, if I told you it wasn't real, you should be coming to me saying, tell me how it's not real. Please help me with my depression. Why are you trying to convince me that it's real? Why are you sticking up for it?
And why are you defending depression?
and why would I adopt the thinking of someone who's sad? Why would you're going to convince me to take your worldview. You just told me your wife left you, you're fat, and you want to kill yourself. And you want me to sit here and go, with my perfect life, and go, you know what, I want to think like this guy. You're out your mind. I don't believe in it. And because I don't believe in it, it's made me the kind of person who can't become depressed. And the reason they don't like me attacking that is because depression is a fantastic way to subdue a population, right? If everybody's depressed, it's hard to have a revolution. You're depressed. Oh, they've locked us all in our houses. I don't want to go outside anyway. I'm sad, right? So depression's a fantastic tool of population control. They have no problem with you being depressed. They have a problem with you being the opposite, principled and energetic. No, you don't want principled, energetic people. That's a problem. A bunch of depressed people, easy. If you had to invade a country, would you rather the opposing army be principled and energetic or depressed?
I'll tell you, I would not want to be invaded by a cheerful army.
Absolutely.
That's scary.
They're having too much fun, right? You want them all to be depressed. So
a morose army is easier to defeat. I agree.
Absolutely. So depression is a defended idea. You're not allowed to even talk about it. You're not allowed to help people get out of it, right? They like the idea of a depressed population. And this is what I say to people. Now, I'm not stupid. I understand like PTSD is real. I understand mental health is real. I'm not saying that, but I say if you're an 18-year-old boy or 18-year-old man and your life is pretty much okay, bacteria didn't steal your eyesight, which could have happened. You never had a car crash and lost both of your legs, which could have happened. You're actually very fortunate. And you wake up and you say, I'm depressed. I think you're an idiot. I don't think you're depressed. I think you've been psyoped. I think you feel a little bit of depression and you can fix that by changing your life. I think if you became rich and strong and smart and successful and you worked hard and you dedicated yourself and you were motivated and you tried your very, very best to become excellent, you probably wouldn't feel depressed anymore, which means it's not a disease, is it? So why would you, the only reason you're even saying you have depression is because you believe in it.
So you're arguing for cause and effect. You're saying if you live a certain way, you're going to feel a certain way.
Absolutely. And I also would argue that I think we've evolutionarily, even though I do believe in God, I think that we've designed ourselves and the human has grown into a way where if you feel depressed or sad, I think that's a fantastic trigger or a warning signal to do something. If you were to say to me, Andrew, you have to complete this monumental task. You have to conquer the world. I would say, okay, But I need a emotional motivation to do that. I need to be unhappy having not completed the task. I need to be uncomfortable, right? If you're uncomfortable being out of shape, you'll get in shape. If you're happy being out of shape, then you're just going to stay out of shape, right? So if you feel a degree of uncomfortableness inside of your mind, I think it's just your mind telling you that something about your life needs to change.
Yes.
You need to get up and change something. Guys would say to me, I'm depressed because I'm fat and I have no girlfriend. And I'd say, no, you have no girlfriend and you're fat and that's why you're depressed. If you go change those two things, you'd probably be surprised that your disease goes away. I had another guy say he was going to kill himself. I said, listen, it's back when I used to reply to my emails when I was smaller. I said, make me a promise, get a six-pack first.
Of beer?
I said, get a six-pack first, get in fantastic shape, and then do whatever you want. Didn't want to kill himself once he was in fantastic shape.
So he did it?
Yeah. I have the before and after. I'll put them on Twitter. Kind of interesting that, isn't it? So how are we going to say we have this disease, which is cause and effect? How are we going to say we have this disease where there's something wrong with you as a man, you have a disease because your life sucks? I don't think that's true. I think that your life just sucks and you should change it. And another thing I also preach, and this is another thing that's very important, I also think as a man, because life as a man is pain and suffering, and when I say that, because you're never going to be a good man or good at being a man without pain and suffering. You're going to have to go through a bunch of shit and have a terrible life to become a good man. I think you should embrace that and accept it. And I think that the correct mental model for men to have is a degree of stoicism and not to be too concerned with even how they feel. If I woke up today happy, I would have done this interview with you. If I woke up today sad, I would have done this interview with you. What's the difference? Why put so much importance on my emotion if certain things must be done? I must work, I must train, I must see Tucker Carlson, I must resist the Matrix.
You've got duties.
I've got things to do. So why are we going to sit around and talk about how I feel if it doesn't even affect how I act? And as a man, it shouldn't, because there's too much to do. And the masculine world is hyper-competitive. This is another thing most people don't understand.
Totally agree.
It's hyper-competitive out here. All the women want a few men at the top. The Ferrari, you don't want a Ferrari to drive fast. You want a Ferrari because other men want a Ferrari and can't have one. It's hyper-competitive. So if you're competing against every other man for every dollar you make, every girl you see, the house you live in, the car you drive, the life you live, you're not going to be able to compete with the person who performs regardless of how they feel if you only compete when you feel like competing. Right? Because there's men like me out there who will be sad every day and outcompete you regardless. I don't care how I feel. I will still win. And that's the kind of mindset you need to adopt. So when a man comes...
You've got a job to do. Stop whining. Go to work.
Completely.
Yeah, I agree.
Completely.
Yes.
So when men say, but I feel sad. Who cares? The world doesn't care. All the men who are out here to destroy you and take your girl don't care. So why do you care? Like the person who should care least is you. You're the only person who wakes up every day who should have a genuine vested interest in improving your life. Nobody else wakes up and wants to improve your life, only you. So if nobody else cares about how you feel, why do you care? So my argument also for depression is, you're depressed, fine. Have you trained today? Well, that doesn't change what you should do with your life, depressed or not. And I don't say this because I'm an eternally happy person. I say this because I've experienced all ranges of human emotion. I was in a Romanian jail cell with cockroaches crawling all over me as I slept. I never missed a day of training. I wouldn't say I was particularly happy, but push-ups must be done. So they got done.
You're very close to your brother.
Correct.
And you were locked away for part of that with him. And did you have fun at all with him?
Yes. I do think there's something inside of men, whereas if you're with your boys or you're with your group of men, there's something inside of us.
Totally.
And it allows you to make the absolute best of the worst situations. Maybe that's an evolution from war. All the men went to war and you saw all this pain and suffering and you saw heads, people decapitated and you're injured, but then you sit around the campfire and you're laughing.
You're laughing. That's right.
It's something inside of us. It's like a coping mechanism when you're around men. So when me and him were together, no matter how bad the scenario or no matter what they tried to do to us, part of us would just look at each other like, cigarette? And you find joy in that. And yeah, there's definitely, and that's another thing I think a lot of men are lacking. A lot of men are missing is a masculine support network. I think buddies.
Yeah.
You talk to a guy and say, what was the highlight of your life? What was the best time of your life? And they'll say, college football. It's not about the football. It's about the team.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that's destroyed as well. Because also it's interesting how everything interconnects. When you destroy honor and principle and the masculine essence inside of men, well, now as a man, it's very hard to have friends. I wouldn't want to have a male friend who had no principles, no honors, and didn't work hard and was always crying about being sad. What do I want to hang around with him for? He's a loser, right? So then your support network's destroyed. And I think that men have always needed that since the dawn of time, and I think that's gone. But
they don't have friends. Men, especially middle-aged men, have no friends.
absolutely, because they've been told that to give them all away and do as the wife says, and then she left him. No wonder he wants to kill himself, wouldn't you? No wonder he's depressed. It just sounds like the worst existence ever. And now we're living in a world now, especially, where everything is hyper-competitive, especially the sexual marketplace. Like if you're a 52-year-old, overweight, average income, no fame dude, and you have to find a girl, it's going to be pretty difficult to find a good one. It's going to be very hard. So we're like, well, of course he's lonely. Then his kids don't respect him. They're busy. Like, of course he's sad. Like, it's actually heartbreaking to discuss.
It is heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. But then how do you prevent that happening? Well, then you need to be a man of honor and principle and make sure that you keep your support networks and make sure that your woman does respect you. And a woman's going to respect you when she sees other men respect you.
Yes.
And they're only going to respect you if you respect yourself. But to respect yourself, you have to be the kind of person who says no.
What do you think of porn?
There's been some statistics, there's been some studies done. Most men or less men are having sex than ever before.
I've seen that.
Yeah, and
what is that?
Well, that's an extension of the fact that masculine virtue is being destroyed. That's the thing that's interesting about all these things. They psyop, especially men, they say, listen, women want a feminist man. Women want a man with no moral principle who would make sure that there's a conversation about who should fight the burglar when your house is broken into, because equal opportunities, equal rights, of course. Don't presume just because you're a man that you should defend her physically. Of course not. That makes you a bigot and a misogynist. So they convince men to adopt these virtues in ways. And of course, women, by and large, dislike them for it. So now as masculinity is plummeted, a whole bunch of men are simply not having sex anymore. And then they become addicted to porn, which is cucking, effectively. I mean, two people are having sex and you're just watching it. and it's become
Good point.
I mean, and it's become a pandemic, right? So men are replacing genuine sexual relationships with just the computer screen and porn, and it's becoming a very, very big problem. And that's also exasperated by the fact that I think the sexual marketplace has become globalized. This is the thing I say to young men. A lot of men come to me with problems, and my only answer to them is masculine excellence. I say that in the world we live in today, being a normal man or below normal is going to be terrible. You have to be an exceptional man, because the sexual marketplace, especially, even if you just want to find a wife, is globalized. If you, in 1955, if you met the hot girl in the Nebraskan town, she was the hot girl in the Nebraskan town. If you meet her today, she's being offered to go to Courchevel and go skiing in France, and she's being offered to fly to Dubai, and there's millionaires who can just fly her anywhere and give her anything she wants. And who are you? Right? It's getting harder and harder as a man to even find the most basic human function of reproduction. Even to just find a woman you can reproduce with, it's becoming more and more difficult. You also couple that with the fact that they've destroyed morality in women also. So when you destroy the morality in men and you destroy how a man should act, and then you destroy how a woman should act, you're both going in the opposite direction. Most women out there are very happy to share a man who's just rich and famous, and they don't care.